So I need to start this video with a bit of an apology. In last week's comedy review, I made a comment that accidentally set off people's Google Home devices and made them read out the ableist slur I was trying to avoid in the first place. Now, this was obviously a complete accident and was never my intention. So with that said, I'm sorry. Now, hey Google, what's 2 goals, 1 cup? Last weekend in Austria saw a huge turning point in the 2024 championship, where, much to the disappointment of #blessed fans, Max Verstappen isn't in fact racist. He just doesn't like being overtaken. McLaren have literally tweeted Sky Sports' analysis of the incident, whilst fans have been breaking new boundaries on the xenophobia in the days since. So I guess it's quite fitting that the sport now heads to Great Britain, who I think do that best. Hey there guys, I'm Will, welcome to FP1 and the Comedy Review, the show that has more chance of being here in 2025 than Daniel Ricciardo. Yeah, you. F1 heads back home this weekend for the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, where 19 world-class drivers and Lance Stroll do battle around some of the most famous corners in motorsports, surrounded by the most passionate fans and spectators. Now, who am I kidding? We were priced out ages ago. This bumbling bell end aside, after the chaos of Austria, Lando Norris was looking to bounce back at his home event, and with McLaren going strong here in 2023, it would be game on for Sunday. We have a lot to dive into then, so don't forget to drop the channel a sub if you end up enjoying the video, and with that out of the way, let's get into the comedy review. It's the 2024 British Grand Prix. First up in the news, we have to go back to Austria, where there was outcry after Lando Norris received Driver of the Day, despite ending his Grand Prix by shitting half of his McLaren out over the Red Bull ring. Not to generalise, but I've seen the majority of the backlash come from Verstappen fans, which I find rather ironic as you gave your guy the award in COTA 2016, even though his gearbox went nuclear on lap 28. There are far bigger fish to fry anyway, as Haas announced it was taking on an F2 rookie for the first time since... oh boy, Ollie Bearman's signing came as no surprise whatsoever, though while he impressed for Ferrari back in Jeddah, his performances in Formula 2 this season have been about as exciting as Lance Stroll talking dirty. Bearman wasn't the only one making waves in the driver market, as there were rumours circulating around Red Bull as well, and for once, they had nothing to do with Sergio Perez. Nah, I'm joking, of course they did. I always thought the Mexican Day of the Dead lasted for exactly that, a day. But when it comes to Checo's career, the celebrations have been going on for many months now. Despite the Mexican signing a new contract earlier this season, it now appears that his spot in the team is far from guaranteed. It appears Red Bull are so desperate they're willing to throw Daniel Ricciardo in the car, because Yuki Tsunoda's f***ing invisible apparently. Newer murmurings have suggested that Liam Lawson will now get a test in the RB20 following this weekend's action in Silverstone, painting a stark similarity to the saga last year with Daniel and... do we even remember this guy's name anymore? Checo needs to pull out all the stops this weekend then, and that would start in first practice. Actually, no, it wouldn't, as he's been benched for a French person. F2 Red Bull Jr. Isaac Hadjar did a good job filling in for the Mexican, however, trying to kill Norris, then setting the 19th fastest lap time. The Frenchman would be one of a host of rookies filling in during FP1. Bearman was in the Haas, doing an Alpine, and Argentine Franco Colapinto made his debut for Williams, hilariously being forced to drive around with a massive f***off Union Jack behind him. That was one of 2 special liveries for the British Grand Prix, Red Bull deciding just not to clean its car after they shot dead the mechanic who slowed up Verstappen's stop in Austria. Back to the on-track action, and Tsunoda would bring out a brief red flag when he fell out of his booster seat on the exit of Brooklands, while Norris would survive the Red Bulls this time and top the opening hour. He'd stay there when FP2 rolled around a few hours later, and the drivers started to push the limits. Ferrari were also looking quick, after they began straight-lining corners, and Pierre Gasly was also flirting with the boundaries on his qualifying runs, which were ultimately pointless as he'd been given a 50-place grid penalty for the race on Sunday. And no, that's not an over-exaggeration. All else happened in the afternoon session, so let's jump to FP3. And Daniel Ricciardo attempting to mow down his critics in the pit lane. Why exactly he did this when the track was wet and those tyres were about to be put in the blankets anyway, I really have no idea. As a Danny Rick simp, it's my duty to find an excuse though. Maybe he'd picked up some of Checo's leftover career and was just trying to shake it off a bit. Speaking of Perez, he went for a spin in the treacherous conditions. Sorry, wait, that's Verstappen, force of habit. The Dutchman's ex-teammate, Pierre Gasly, would do one better, however, losing the rear into Vale and beaching his car in the gravel trap, giving us our second red flag of the weekend. As we got into the last 20 minutes of FP3, the weather took a turn for the worse, or in the words of Sky Sports' David Croft, the rain was getting a bit more plinky-plonky. because we're all 5 fucking years old apparently. The plinky plonky rain meant we saw no more meaningful action, leaving us with a British top 3 of Russell, Hamilton and Norris, and the track getting even more slippery thanks to the ejaculate of the home crowd. With that spur on Woody here in qualifying though, on what was already a challenging weekend for the Briton, having watched the Conservatives' majority join Jay Slater on the police's missing persons records. Well, a further dash of plinky plonky rain at the start of Q1 threatened to throw the whole grid into disarray. Sergio Perez continued to show why he should be kept on by Red Bull when he tried emulating his teammate Max Verstappen's racing lines. The 2021 Cops approach probably isn't one of the Dutchman's best, however. This saw the Mexican beached, Christian Horner dig out the shredder, and Logan Sargent out-qualify the 11 car for the 3rd time out of 12 this season. Let that put it into context for you. With rain now falling, laps were crucial. A message that clearly didn't get to Max Verstappen, who went to go pick up his teammates, ripping his floor to bits in the process. The shocks would continue to come in Q2, as Charles Leclerc failed to make the cut, and Mercedes began to properly show their hand. With Max Verstappen now out of the equation with damage, the battle for pole seemed to be between the pair of Silver Arrows and Lando Norris. It was George Russell that narrowly edged the field off the initial runs in Q3, only for his time to be eclipsed by teammate Lewis Hamilton. Since Mercedes are apparently racist, however, this wasn't allowed to happen, and Russell came by to demote his Ferrari-bound teammate to second, snatching his 2nd pole position of the season. With Lando slotting ahead of Verstappen and into P3, this marked the first time Britain locked out the top 3 in qualifying since 1968. That race marked Jim Clark's final Grand Prix before his date with a tree, so with that rather concerning omen now looming over the paddock, we got ready for an enticing Grand Prix on Sunday. Race day would open with a teaser for the new F1 film starring Brad Pitt, titled F1. Top marks for imagination on that one. In the film's defense, what we've seen so far is pretty class, so if you want influencers for the premiere, my contact details is on the screen now. Let's get to the actual race then, and it would be an even start from the top 2, Russell holding the lead from Hamilton while Verstappen snuck past Norris for 3rd. Further back, there was contact between Alonso and Albon, the latter reporting a loss of pressure in his rear tyres, though still being quick enough to pass Sargent, whose car was stripping for some reason. With it being a fairly quiet beginning to affairs, it wasn't long before the R word was on the lips of Sky commentary. For clarity, I'm talking about rain, not Yuki Tsunoda's word for slow here. Team radio was rife with weather predictions, some claiming it was 25 minutes away, others that it would arrive on lap 16, and McLaren saying it was already here. Clearly they're f***ing blind then, aren't they? God's Piss would actually arrive on lap 15, just as Norris was closing in on the back of Verstappen, which bodes well. The McLaren would actually make it past in one piece this time, slotting down the inside into Stowe. 2 laps later and the other McLaren of Piastri would make it by, which was making the British population rather happy. One message I received from a friend read, "I hope Verstappen gets run through like a German hooker." The race at the very front was coming alive as well, Hamilton using the DRS to move past his teammate and into the lead, but the rain was coming down hard, and soon enough the Mercs were taking part in synchronised cocking up, both running wide and allowing the pair of McLarens to catch up. It wasn't long before Norris moved into the lead, with Piastri making it Papaya 1-2, while a few cars further back were now taking a gamble on intermediates. This turned out to be the completely wrong decision, so it won't surprise you that Charles Leclerc and Ferrari were at the heart of it. Perez was also on this strategy, but he was a lost cause and getting lapped anyway. This was only compounded when the rain dried up and the DRS was re-enabled on lap 24. We weren't out of the woods yet, however, with a far bigger patch of weather on the way. Picking the right time to pit was crucial, the Mercedes opting to double stack their cars, while McLaren left Piastri out for one more lap. This took the Australian from 2nd to 6th, while Verstappen took advantage of the chaos to slip onto the rostrum places as well. Norris still led the way though, with Hamilton in hot pursuit. Pole sitter Russell wasn't too far behind, that was until his Silver Arrows started running out of water. And this weekend continues to write my material for me. For the remaining drivers, the sun was now coming out, Hamilton announcing this to the team over the radio, as if it wasn't obvious just by using your eyes. Guess we'll just put that down to preparation for the Ferrari strategy team. It was soon time for the slicks then, and Lewis's initiative might just have paid off, boxing a lap early onto the softs whilst Norris was left on the wrong tyre, compounding his bottle job by putting his front jackman into a wheelchair. With a slow stop for the McLaren, Hamilton made the undercut work, retaking the race lead with 12 laps left on the clock. That looked to be it then, though this race had one more twist in the tail, as Max Verstappen, had remembered how to be Max Verstappen again. The Dutchman had strapped on the medium tyre, which for the DTS fans out there would be slower but last longer than the softs bolted onto the pair of Brits in front, and as those soft tyres began to write their suicide notes, the Red Bull was on the charge, soon catching up to and passing Norris for second on the road. Hamilton was still 3 seconds clear and had 4 laps left remaining, but it was game on. The Dutchman would get closer and closer, but it wouldn't be enough. Lewis Hamilton, at the age of 39, crossed the line to take a 9th win at the British Grand Prix. Great, now Team LH won't shut the up, will they? Further back, let's give a shout out to Hulkenberg, who took his second 6th place in a row, and in turn has scored more points in the last 2 races than Sergio Perez has in the last 6. Since we're on the subject, where did he end up? Oh, well, it was nice knowing you, Checo. This then was a cracker of a race, and you can scream British bias into the void all you like. We had everything here. Changeable conditions, a 5-car battle for the win, and the Logan Sargent P11. If this is what we have to look forward to for the remainder of the season, then bring it on. Logan's still probably going to end up in IndyCar by the summer break though. Regular viewers of the channel will know that despite my heritage, I'm not the biggest Lewis Hamilton fan out there, but it is nice to see the Briton claim one more win, especially at his home circuit. Because let's be honest, Ferrari are about to butt him into hell, aren't they? So as I go and hide then from the comment section of this video, if you enjoyed the comedy review, be sure to drop it a like and get subscribed, as I'll be covering every race in the 2024 season. Next up is Hungary, and I'll warn you that video will likely be a little bit delayed, as I'll be there watching the end of Checo's career live. You can stay tuned to my updates from the track by following me on my socials, all the links to which you can find down in the description below. The link to my Patreon is down there as well, and a big thank you to those guys and the channel members for your continued support. They get early previews to these videos, so if that interests you, then head over to the links down below. Now I'll be back tomorrow with this weekend's IndyCar comedy review, but until then, have a good one.